This is one of my favorite type of stories to talk about on YouTube because I get to be like arbiter of morality and also an armchair lawyer and pretend that I know any goddamn thing about any of those things. So we're going to do that, and we're going to get into it. What are we talking about? We're talking about Gina Carano suing Elon Musk to buy Star Wars and give it back to George Lucas. It's a crazy story. And I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts, and no. Look, what we're talking about Gina suing Disney and LucasFilm for wrongful termination. And this is huge news, okay? Like, regardless of how you feel about it, and I'm sure your mileage will vary, this is a massive fucking deal, okay? So a massive deal, and of course we have to talk about it, and of course we're going to break it down. I'm going to play lawyer. I'm going to play critical thinking philosopher Josh. It's going to be fucking awesome, and it's going to be so fun. And so let's get into the details. Now, before we look at the actual article, before we look at her statement, there's a couple of things I think we have to keep in mind. There is the legal court and the legal case, and then there is the court of public opinion. And I think both of those things really matter. For me, I'm a little less interested in the actual court and the legal proceedings and how all of that happens. Don't worry, I'll still play lawyer and we'll have fun with that. But what's more interesting to me is the court of public opinion. And I personally think, just right from Jump Street, that Gina has kind of already won in the court of public opinion, but maybe not in the way that you think. I think the other thing that's almost immediately obvious is that this is super bad for Disney. Like, getting sued just in general, not a fun experience, not something that any person or corporation or business wants. So just in that sense, I think it's not great, Disney, not great, right? But I think also when you add the element here of where Disney is currently at, both through the eyes of Wall Street and through the eyes of the consumer, and you add in the fact that Elon Musk is bankrolling this whole thing, and Elon has his own motivations for doing this. I think Elon has his own outcome that he desires. Now, in one sense, it is sort of a petty, like, he has a beef. You know what I mean? Like, let's be real. He's got a beef with Disney, maybe specifically with Bob Iger, okay? But I also think there's something else going on here that Elon really wants to do. So where did this come from, right? And we're going to talk about, again, I want to read the report and we're going to read her statement. Why did this happen? Meaning, what opened the door for this lawsuit? Does anybody know in chat? Like, and it's not just the fact that she was fired, right? So why did this happen? Does anybody know? Let's start there. I think that's like a really important thing to keep in mind as we go through this, because Elon's goal here is not specifically tied to Gina getting justice. Elon's goal is Bueller. Anybody? Bueller. Okay, wow. Okay, so this is horrible answers, horrible job chat. By the way, this is a big deal. This clip might go on the main channel. So wake up, God damn it. Okay, this is happening because Elon wants to have precedence that makes it so companies don't fire people for what they say on social media, mainly Twitter. He's trying to apply pressure and legal precedence that deters companies from using what people post on Twitter, mostly because he owns that. He wants that to stop happening. And the overall goal there ultimately has to do with the cash flow of Twitter. It ultimately has to do with Twitter being able to have advertisers and to put ads up and to make revenue and to thrive as a platform, right? So in Elon's mind, this whole thing started because he was like, hey, if you were wrongfully terminated from your job because of something you said on our platform, I will pay your legal fees to go after these companies. And again, this all ultimately has to do with setting some kind of precedent that will make it so basically people stop taking what you say on Twitter and applying real world consequences to that. That's his ultimate goal. Okay. Now, of course, there's that beef, right? And Elon, has the beef with Bob Iger, has the beef with Disney and all that, et cetera, et cetera. But it's important to remember what even opened the door for this and what Elon's goal ultimately is. Okay, now let's look at the article in the Hollywood Reporter. I believe they were the first one to report on this, but even if they weren't, pretty much everybody was reporting on this. It's, like we said, huge freaking news. And let me resize this so we can read this together. Gina Carano sues Disney over Mandalorian firing in lawsuit funded by Elon Musk. The actress claims the entertainment giant discriminated against her for voicing certain opinions on hot button issues. In an escalation of a standoff over her firing from The Mandalorian, Gina Carano is suing Disney and Lucasfilm for discrimination and wrongful termination in a lawsuit that opens another front in the battle for influence over Hollywood that has drawn in corporate America. I think that's a brilliant first paragraph. I think a lot of that is true. Carano, in a complaint filed Tuesday in California federal court, alleges she was fired for voicing right-wing opinions on social media and seeks a court order that would force Lucasfilm to recast her. Elon Musk, making good on a promise to foot the legal bill for users who claim they have been discriminated against due to their activity on his platform, is helping fund the suit through X. In a statement, X's head of business operations, Joe Benarock, said, a sign of X Corp's commitment to free speech, we're proud to provide financial support for Gina Carano's lawsuit, empowering her to seek vindication of her free speech rights on X and the ability to work without bullying, harassment, or discrimination. Lucasfilm in 2021 announced that Carano would not be returning to the hit series after sharing posts in which she said, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up the Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How is that any different than hating someone for their political views? Now, that's a bit of couching, although I do believe that is an actual tweet that she said, okay? But I just want to, look, when we read Gina's statement here, let's just hold on to that thought and hold on to that example that was used in the Hollywood Reporter. It was the latest in a long string of posts in which the former MMA fighter drew the ire of social media users for positions seen as right-wing on hot-button issues. Carano was dropped by UTA following the controversy, previously mocked government mandates to wear masks during COVID-19 pandy, and falsely suggested that voter fraud occurred in the 2020 presidential election. Okay. In a statement clarifying the post on X, Carano Tuesday said, my words were consistently twisted to demonize and dehumanize me as an alt-right wing extremist. According to the complaint, Disney and Lucasfilm harassed and defamed Carano for refusing to conform to her viewpoints on issues relating to Black Lives Matter, preferred pronouns, disproven claims of the election interference. While she was allegedly fired for her cultural and religious beliefs, Carano argues that entertainment giant turned a blind eye to her male co-stars who allegedly made offensive and denigrating posts directed towards Republicans. She points to Pedro Pascal's 2017 post comparing former President Donald Trump to Hitler. By the way, I think that's fair. I know a lot of y'all, it's going to be a divided audience. I know everybody's got their own sort of feelings on it, but I'll just say for my part, I think that's fucking fair, dude. It at the very least shows that one kind of comparison to 1940s Germany is acceptable and one kind is not. just in my opinion. The suit says Disney required Carano, who was paid $25,000 per episode as a guest actor, and later negotiated a one-time $5,000 bonus to meet with representatives of Gay and Lesbian Alliance discrimination, demand a public apology. Defense went so far as to try and convince Carano's publicist to force Carano to issue a statement admitting to mocking or insulting an entire group of people, which Carano had never done, the complaint said. After she refused, Carano was told to meet with Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy and 45 employees who identify as LGBTQ+. According to the suit, she declined and was terminated shortly after from The Mandalorian, as well as other titles in the Star Wars universe, including Rangers of the New Republic. Carano also alleges Disney engaged in a post-termination smear campaign, citing the abrupt removal of an episode of Running Wild with Bear Grylls, in which she appeared in the show's scheduled lineup, an effort to malign her, and the episode eventually aired. The suit faults Disney's termination of Carano as the impetus for UTA and her transactional lure dropping her as a client. Carano brings claims of wrongful discharge and sex discrimination. She seeks a court order that will force Lucasfilm to recast her at least... Wait, what? That would recast her and at least $75,000 plus punitive damages. Yeah, look, we'll get into it, but that's not even that much money. I mean, I guess it is, but some of us have been unjustly singled out, harassed, persecuted, and had our lives stripped away because we dared to encourage conversation, ask questions, and refuse to go along with the mob. At-will employees, who make up the majority of the private sector, often face an uphill climb in obtaining damages for terminations over problematic online posts deemed to be offensive in violation of the workplace policy. Unlike employees in the public sector, such workers are not shielded against discipline under the First Amendment. On X, finding the suit, Carano said, "I am honored my case has been chosen and supported by the company that has been one of the glimmers of hope of free speech in the world." Last year, Musk pledged to fund legal action for users on X claim they have faced discrimination over their activity on the platform. The offer came with a no limit on cost, with Musk saying that he would go after the board of directors of the companies too. Damn. Amid hardening position on the issue, such gender politics race, government holding work corporations accountable. One of the main pillars of the failed presidential campaign last year, he assumed control of a special tax district that controls development around Disney World in a move to intend blah, blah, blah. Okay, so basically, I think overall pretty fair article. I think there's a bit of couching here and there. I don't think this is a pro Gina article, and I wouldn't really expect it to be, coming out from the Hollywood trades. But overall, I think some good points were made, and some definitely some sort of staging of the events and whatnot. Now, can we find Gina's actual statement? Today is an important day for me. I am filing a lawsuit against Lucasfilm and Disney. After my 20 years of building a career from scratch, during the regime of former Disney CEO Bob Chapek, Lucasfilm made this statement on Twitter, terminating me from The Mandalorian. Gina Carano is not currently employed by Lucasfilm, and there are no plans for her to be in the future. Nevertheless, her social media posts denigrating people based on their cultural and religious identities are abhorrent and unacceptable. I gotta tell you, I think they fucked up when they said this. Yeah, I think they fucked up when they put this exact statement out. Because I believe California is an at-will state, meaning they can fire you and they don't even have to give you a reason. And in fact, they shouldn't give you a reason. Now, the only sort of exposure that I've had to this kind of a lawsuit in this kind of a world is just through some coworkers and some people that when I used to work in the restaurant industry. And I remember a guy that was fired and ended up suing because they told him it was because he was late all the time. And the company did not keep actual records that proved he was late all the time. And he was able to basically say, they can't even prove the reason that they claim to have fired me, therefore it's discrimination, blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff. And he won that fucking case. Now, again, who knows if that's anything to do with what we're talking about right here. But if, again, fake lawyer Josh, I'm basically saying most of the merits of this case come down to this exact statement here. And I think this was such a dumb thing to say. And I wonder, was this something that came from an executive? Was this something that came from a social media manager or something like that? I don't really know. That's wild as hell. But yeah, I think that's really what it comes down to there. That statement is pretty damning, I think, to Disney. Anyway, nothing could be further from the truth. The truth is that I was being hunted down from everything I posted to every post I liked because I was not in line with the acceptable narrative of this time. I think that's true. My words were consistently twisted to demonize and dehumanize me as an alt-right wing extremist. I think that's true. It was a bully smear campaign aimed at silencing, destroying, and making an example out of me. Yeah. The thing is, I never even used aggressive language. I shared thought-provoking quotes, pictures, memes, and occasionally I used my own words, not with aggression, but with respect to the occasional comedy to keep the mood light in dark time. Look with your own eyes at what I posted and ask yourself, for example, where did I compare Republicans to the Jewish people in the Holocaust? I didn't. Now, going back to this right here, right? It says right here, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How's that any different from hating someone for their political views? I gotta say, I think the sort of takeaway from this statement, generally speaking, does make that comparison. However, I think legally speaking, she actually has a case. Like, and this is because we have a litigious system, you know what I mean? And so she'll basically be able to prove that she's talking about, like, first of all, she never mentions Republic, you know what I mean? Even though it's like implied. She's also not directly comparing the two. She's really making a comparison about the perspective of people that were discriminating and the perspective of people that are now discriminating. So it's one of those things where, and this is another thing to kind of keep in mind, legally speaking, like, it doesn't matter what you know, it matters what you can prove, right? So like, you could sit in a room with like 100 people that basically know, yeah, she was kind of making that comparison. Legally speaking, you probably can't prove it. Does that make sense, chat? Like, do you get what I'm saying there? But let's keep going. Let's keep reading in her statement. Ask yourself, why were they calling me racist? Was there any merit behind that or a history of it whatsoever? No. Look at what I was called a transphobe for making droid noises from Star Wars. Beep, bop, boom. I was obviously directed to online bullies and did not anyway denigrate transgender people. Were my questions about mask, lockdown, and forced vaccines to ask and push the subject into the light? Should we have been allowed to publicly discuss these topics at that time without being harassed or censored? Absolutely. I mean, look, I'd be interested in knowing your thoughts on that, chat, but it's been years now. And I do think the discourse and the sort of either, you know, you call it the goalposts or the Overton window, shit has changed and it has shifted. And I think we now look back at a lot of the actions and the things that happened at that time, and they were sort of draconian. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. You tell me. Do you not agree? Do some of you like still just absolutely believe that all that shit was 100% needed and totally in line with the sort of values that we claim to have as a country? Interesting. Artists do not sign away our rights as American citizens when we enter into employment. I've spoken to all my co-stars since I was fired. There's nothing but care and kind words between us. I respect their right to free speech and do not have to think the same way on every issue to be their friends and work with them. I know how they feel towards me. I think Giancarlo Esposito even last year said, I absolutely love Gina. I don't care about her politics. I don't care what her politics are. She's a beautiful person, and I absolutely love working with her. I believe he said that recently. You know, obviously, like, we're all still reeling for the loss of Carl Weathers. Carl and Gina, I mean, Gina shared this really beautiful thing about Carl after his passing. And, like, I fucking believe it, dude. Like, I believe that. And they had, you know, they had that athlete thing in common and stuff. And, like, you know, because some of the people, even when I was talking about this on Twitter yesterday, were like, can you imagine hiring her back? And I'm like, yeah, no, it'd be awkward for, like, a couple of people that visit the set once a month. It would probably not be that awkward for all the people that know and worked with her. A couple of months ago, Elon Musk tweeted that if you had been fired from using the platform X for exercising your right to free speech, he would like to offer these people legal representation. Quite the noble offer, but never in my wildest dreams would I still have thought anyone would take on my case against Lucasfilm and Disney. Dude, for sure. Like, let me ask you this. We can all agree that suing Disney is pretty wild, yes? Like, you know, just when you sue somebody, a lot of what's going to, you know, make that a good or bad lawsuit is going to be the case, but it's also going to be the person you're suing, who has the resources, you know? And oftentimes we see situations where, I mean, even like, you know, not to get fucking ridiculous with it, but have you ever seen Aaron Brockovich or Michael Clayton? Big companies can just throw money and basically drown out a person's ability to fight for justice in a legal system just because of how expensive lawyers are, how expensive court costs are. It's crazy. So I think suing Disney just in any way, shape, or form is wild. That's a wild task. And I agree with her. I didn't. When that happened and Gina was making the post, or she was like, I think I might have a case. And I was like, okay, that's going to be one of those things. Everybody likes it, shares it around, et cetera, et cetera. But I doubt it'll happen, right? And so, yeah, I was pretty shocked when it happened too. I think I qualify. Thousands of people have agreed. To my surprise, a few months ago, I received an email from a lawyer who had been hired by X to look into my story and many others. Turns out, after sending them as much information as I could gather these past few months, my now lawyers and X believe wholeheartedly in my case and are moving forward. I would like to express my deepest gratitude and thank you to Elon Musk and X for giving me an opportunity to bring my case to light. As for me, I would like to pick up where I left off and continue my journey creating and participating in storytelling, which is my utmost passion and everything I worked so hard for. It has been difficult to move forward with the lies and labels stuck on me. I think that's probably true, yeah. Backed and encouraged by the most powerful entertainment company in the world, I am grateful to someone coming to my defense. Powerful way, looking forward to clearing my name. Thank you, all the people who supported me and made your voices. Pray to God bless each and one of you. For more inquiries, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so goddamn, quite a crazy statement, quite a crazy article, and I think quite a crazy just story, just in general, okay? So now that we've kind of broken down exactly what's happening, let's kind of think this through in the sort of legal sense first, I guess, and the court of public opinion sense next. Again, armchair lawyer Josh thinks this is horrible for Disney. And I think they're probably going to have to settle because I think there's too much risk and potentially too much liability for the company if they actually go to court for this exact case. Does anybody disagree with that, by the way? I wonder if anybody could. Because, like, dude, even if you're like, dude, fuck Gina, and you're like, hey, Gina, and you're like, whatever, like, just take a step back and understand that Disney, not a good company. Like, I'm sorry, it's just true. Not nice, not your friend, not the company it was even 10 years ago. And, Bob Iger making $1 bajillion a year while firing in his own employee. Like, guys, like, I'm sorry, who out there among you is still willing to go to bat for this company? Who out there among you is willing to say, no, Disney, this institution that matters and that stands for this, that, second, and the third, absolutely deserves my undying loyalty? I don't see it. I don't see many people that have that attitude. And I don't think that Wall Street believes that Disney still has that relationship with the majority of consumers. Okay, so this is bad. I think if they go to Discovery, all sorts of crazy shit that will just become ammunition for an anti-Disney narrative and an anti-Disney movement. It's too much. It's just way too much, dude. So I don't think they can do this. Okay, now, if they decide to, they could maybe win the case, okay? They could try to, I think their strongest claim, right, the steel man for Disney is, well, this is a person that caused some major controversy. She's a public face of the company that represents us in some way. And, of course, we had tried to reprimand and to give her the steps necessary to find common ground and to do all this sort of stuff, right? Now, the argument's then going to be, well, why didn't you do that with Pedro? Why didn't you do that as Disney, maybe not Lucasfilm, but Disney specifically? Why didn't you do that with Shuri actress? Why do I always blank on her name? Why didn't you do this with Evangeline Lilly? Why didn't you do this with even James Gunn? I think the only example that they might be able to bring up would be Chuck Wendig. Letitia, correct, yeah. So, because I believe Chuck was basically fired for being an extreme lefty. Like a way fucking, and I mean focus on extreme in the sense of the rhetoric. They did fire Chuck Wendig for being sort of flagrant with his left-leaning opinion. Okay, so Disney, I mean, they might be able to say, hey, look, this is basically standard practices, and we allowed Gina an opportunity to do this, that, second, and the third, and then she refused the final step of that or whatever. But I do think it's actually fair that Gina could point out all these other examples and be like, why weren't they like re-educated? Why weren't they, sort of forced down that same path? So I don't know, because part of me thinks, just looking at the case, like, there's like a leverage element where I just don't think Disney wants this smoke. And I mean, look, there's this saying in lawsuits that the only people that win in lawsuits are lawyers. And I got to tell you, this lawyer is having a good month. You know what I mean? Because, oh, baby, is like literally Elon's like, yeah, no, I will spend anything. You know what I mean? I'll spend anything to make this as painful as possible for Disney. Because again, let's keep in mind what his actual goal is. His actual goal is to break this thing where saying a certain thing on, he's trying to eliminate liability for Twitter, right? And he's trying to create a new environment in which advertisers are not as shaken by the things that happen on Twitter because they're looked at through the lens of free speech. That's what he's doing. Okay. So in that sense, man, the lawyers are licking their chops and they're going to go to town. So I think just from that perspective, I think Disney's like, no, we don't want that smoke. And I don't think they should want that smoke. I think they should, by the way, this is going to blow your fucking mind. I think, and I've been saying this for a while, actually, I think they should not only settle, but hire her back, and they should draft up some kind of a statement that says something to the effect of this. And by the way, bro, this shit's so easy. Like, it's literally so easy. All you do is you do all that, you hire her back, and you say something like this. The Walt Disney Company for 100 plus years has stood on the principles of blah, blah, fucking blah. Within the past couple of years, the world has been crazy tumultuous, and our perspective on issues has been ever evolving as the world changes and our audience has changed with it. We recognize that some of the decisions made within that environment, in hindsight, were not correct. We look forward to working with Gina, who is now once again a part of the Disney family, as we together stand on the principles of blah, blah, fucking blah. That's it. Literally. All your trouble's gone. Situation much better. Yeah, you'll catch some flack for some wokies on Twitter a little bit here and there. But really, I think the other side, the other scenario is way worse. I think that's just what you do. Period. The end. You could take a seemingly very difficult, very tumultuous situation and literally turn it into something you can point to explain that you care about all your customers. Why isn't that the goal? Like, why doesn't Bob say, oh, wow, what's that stock price at? Oh, shit. People be saying, what about Disney? Well, guess what? Republicans buy sneakers too. That's it. You know what I mean? So I think that would be the move. Okay. But getting back into the legal thing, I don't think you can deny that Disney's very resourceful as well. If they decide to take this fight on, they will bring a lot to the fight as well. Yeah, I think they'll just try to battle it out for the sake of like standing on their moral ground or whatever, right? And then when it comes to the court of public opinion, right? It's interesting because we're looking at the poll right now and it looks like 73% of people say yes. And look, I just got to tell you, from my perspective, I absolutely think that's what happened. And I think it happened with more than just Gina, And I really do think that things that I could have literally got banned on this platform for saying became talking points in the mainstream media like 6 to 12 months later. And I think that it's sort of weird that we aren't like able to recognize that and look back at that and be like, wow, that shit was like kind of draconian. You know what I mean? Like that shit was kind of draconian. And I don't think that's the way we should have done things. And I don't think that's the way we should do things moving forward, So I think from a court of public opinion perspective, it seems to me, and who knows for sure? I mean, I don't know. The vantage point that I have on this is like who knows for sure, right? Because I'm like a notorious fence sitter, right? So like I kind of don't really take sides. I don't really play that game very much. I kind of just like to, because I think ultimately most things are actually closer to a middle explanation. It's like you get the one story, you get the other story. The truth's probably in the middle, right? But from my vantage point, I think most people have kind of moved into a direction of, not supporting all the stuff that happened just a couple of years ago. And that's just my perspective. I also think Disney is like maybe at its weakest point ever when it comes to public perception. If they want to win the court of public opinion, I mean, I don't know. Like, it to me feels like, again, find me somebody that's really supportive of Disney, you know? Like, find me somebody that's like, oh, hell yeah, Disney doing the right things. And like, I mean, sure, maybe there are some people. I think the majority of people are like, dude, Disney's fucking this up. Like, even normies, I just think that Disney's fucking this up. So it's like, do we really think Disney in its current form, with its current leadership, and with Lucasfilm specifically, do you really think they're equipped to battle Elon and Gina in the court of public opinion? Like, that's a serious question. Do you think so? Because I don't. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely don't. I think they will get their asses kicked in the court of public opinion. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. That's what I think. What's the, like, what, if you don't believe that, like, what's your evidence? Like, what's the evidence that people would really get behind Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy? What evidence do you have? Bob Iger, Kathleen Kennedy. Do those names evoke any positive feelings? You really think people want to support Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy? I love KK says Overbound. Okay, cool. There you go. There, we found him. You know what I mean? Like, we found him. Yeah, I don't know, man. I guess to wrap it up, and it's like a super long, sort of drawn out segment here, right? But I guess like my overall thoughts on it are, dude, I think Disney's kind of in a corner. I think Disney's in a corner, and I think it's kind of like death by a thousand cuts. I think a lot of the stuff that they've done over the past couple of years, and the fact that Wall Street isn't really too keen on their current plans, I think they are in the worst possible shape to take on a battle like this, one in the courts and also in the courts of public opinion. So that's what armchair lawyer Josh has to say, and I rest my case. Where's the gavel? Where's the gavel?